Yeah, so most of my career I was on the owner side, on developer side, and then also owner rep and CM role, where the architect worked for me. And we had a great relationship and built several relationships with several different architectural firms over those years. And so fortunately now I'm working for the same architects in a little bit of a different role. Now the architect's somewhat of a client in some cases. So there's a little bit of a different dynamic, but I've leveraged the relationships that I have in the past now. The other thing I think that's cool is that Gordon Highlander gets to work with several architects. When I was on the owner's side, I had maybe my 3 or 4 favorites that I would go to, but here we don't really choose who the architect is going to be all the time, so we touch a lot of them. And I think what the value that I've seen there is that when we're working on this particular project, because we've worked with so many different design consultants, that we pick up on things, pick up on new ideas, maybe new material, maybe a more cost-effective way to do something that we can bring to another project. So having the diversification, I think creates value for the owner.
So right out of college, I spent 10 to 12 years working with a large commercial general contracting firm, managing projects and estimating and spending a lot of time in pre-construction. After that, I've been on the owner's rep side and the real estate development side for about 15 years. I made the transition back into being a contractor just 4 years ago. And it's incredibly valuable to have the insight of how the different sides think, because owners approach a project a lot of times so differently that contractors do, and it's really important to be thinking the way your client thinks in order to deliver, expectations for what they need. What I really love about Gordon Highlander is our focus, seriously is on the relationship with the client and the relationship with the design team. Our goal is to just build that, the relationship with those teams so that we can continue to serve them, not just on this one project, but multiple projects. When you take that mindset, it really gives you an opportunity to be much more proactive early on in the process, and it gives you a chance to solve problems before they ever become issues.
We work with several, like I said, design consultants and architects, and our approach is absolutely to build a partnership there. In the industry, there's this kind of idea that GCs and architects don't like each other. Well, we're different. We enjoy working with different firms and learning new things and learning how to do things better. So really, it's all about the relationship with us. So when we're introduced to a new architect that we haven't worked with, we really work hard to build that relationship. We want a seamless project. We know that if the experience and the relationship between the architect and us isn't good, then at the end it's not going to be a good experience for the client either. So we treat the architects in many ways like a client, even though we may not be directly contracted with them.
And the most important thing first is to really understand what the owner's intent is, because when the owner has a certain intent for a project or a building or a property, a lot of times their intent may be different than what's projected or seen in the drawings. We can certainly tailor our delivery to meet, what the owner's needs really are. And you don't figure that out unless you really ask the questions and spend time, talking through, not just the drawings and questions that may be in the drawings, but the actual, purpose and intent of the project. We, as a contractor, we engage with our design team and our owners very early on all aspects of the project. We're very detail oriented because we want to resolve all those issues. And if you don't address things ahead of time and sniff out all the problems before you start, then it's it turns into a very challenging project that, people don't like to remember those.
The market is really busy. Architects are overwhelmed, GCs are overwhelmed. So the more we can get in early and help them get through the city, working with different municipalities and the city engineers and actually assisting the architect through that process, which traditionally, the owner would handle that. I think they're welcoming the support. Traditionally, it was, here's your drawings, GC, go build it. A lot of the GCs would kind of take that approach and, I'm not going to do anything until you tell me what to do. We're trying to be proactive. We are, doing everything we can to get to the table as early as possible. And I've seen, that work really well. And the design consultants we work with, how we approach them, have been very receptive to that and welcoming that. We don't want to be a GC that just takes the drawings and, goes. We want to be a part of the whole process and the whole client experience.
That also is such an important time frame in the just project timeline, because that's where everybody really gets on the same mindset of what's required for the project. And that's where, we have the opportunity as a contractor to provide a lot of value, working through constructability issues and phasing issues, and we can actually contribute a lot to the team as opposed to just being a contractor building a building.
What I would say, coming from the owner side and spending most of my career on the owner side, when I had a project where my design team, the architect, civil, and other design consultants and contractor worked well together, we always had a better outcome. When I had a project where they didn't get along as well, it was messy. And and that trickled all the way up to me as on the owner side, and the client experience wasn't as good, even though we delivered maybe the same product type. So it's all about the client experience and the relationship between the general contractor and the design team, and the last impression that leaves to the owner.
The advice I would give to a lot of the owners, reps, and CMs that are out there that I've worked with is traditional delivery method, which is, you approach a design team, they get a project designed, then you take those documents and then you get it bid out to get the lowest possible number that you can. In today's market and in today's world, there's not time to do that anymore. Everybody wants to operate much faster. And they want things to be delivered much quicker with higher expectations. And the best way to really build that opportunity to deliver excellence like that is really to get a team involved where everybody has established those relationships early on. And everybody trusts each other and everybody's looking out for each other. Nobody likes being, working on a project where people are trying to protect their own interests. You can get lost in digging into the details and just using the details to justify your position. The more important aspect is building the relationships with the teams that you're working with. The subcontractors, architects, engineers, owners. At the end of the day, it's us individuals that are working everything out. The details, of course, are absolutely critical, but sometimes, there can be a lot of time lost and a lot of inefficiency that gets created when you have people that are focusing just on whether it's contract language or whether it's drawing details or specifications. This is a relationship business. And the more that everybody can focus on that and work together on that, that's what makes us all successful.